Hello, you guys. I have an exciting video today. I am doing a video collaboration with none other than Seeking Shifts herself, aka Riley. If you don't know, Riley is really big on Instagram and does amazing swatches of indie eyeshadows. So if you are looking for the best indie shadow swatches, definitely check out Seeking Shifts if you haven't yet. But a few months ago, Riley also started a YouTube channel, which I will have linked down below. And I feel like we do very similar content and more so of like the deep dives of different indie brands. Riley has an amazing film setup. And so if you're looking for swatches and information about different brands and shadows that they offer, definitely be sure to subscribe to her YouTube channel. I am so excited to be working with her. We've gotten to know each other through DMs on Instagram, and she is such a sweet person, and she is a great resource if you are into indie makeup. I'm going to be talking a little bit more about Riley and her content at the end of this video, but for now I guess I'll go ahead and tell you what it is that we're talking about today. So the prompt that we are doing is 10 shades that we would buy first if we had to restart our single shadow collections, or also you can think of this as 10 recommendations for shadows you should check out if you are starting a indie single shadow collection. I have to say, I know her picks already, and she has some really good ones, one of which I was super close to putting in my video. So once you check out her video, you'll have to let me know down below if you can guess which of her shadows I almost put in my video. But if you want to see both of our videos, I have hers linked down in the comments. And if you want to see my top 10 shadow recommendations for starting a collection, then go ahead and just keep on watching and subscribe. So when I was picking out my 10 shadows, I was trying to consider a few different things. One, I wanted to make sure I was including some more affordable shadows because I know that if I was having to restart my collection from the ground up, I would want some cheaper shadows to get started with that I know could be easy, everyday shadows that I could use in multiple ways. I also was trying to consider which brands I was choosing and how many brands I was choosing because shipping can be pretty expensive, and so I was trying to keep that in mind, but you'll see there were a few that I couldn't give up despite the expensive shipping. Looking at you, top corner. All right, let's go ahead and get into it, and we'll start up at the top. First up, I did include 2 shades from Shine by SD. The first is Reserve number 2. This is from the Reserve collection, and it retails for $6.65 US as of right now with the conversion because Shine by SD is a Canadian brand. But Shine by SD does have coupon codes or like influencer codes, so you can knock it down in price a little bit. This one is very similar to a Looksie shade called Champagne Punch. I didn't include that in this video though because it was limited edition for holiday 2022, and since it's no longer available, I couldn't get it to restart my collection. And so this shade by Shine by SD is the most affordable version of this shade other than that I know about, and so it's definitely the one I would want when I'm restarting my collection. It's got a gold sparkle with a very, very light pink base in it. You really can't even see it at all. And the reason I chose this one is twofold. One, I love the color just on its own as like an everyday look for work, but it also works well as an inner corner highlight for some of these other shades, and I wanted to make sure I had a few inner corner highlight colors within my top 10 because I know that's an important part of the looks that I create. So that's kind of overall why I picked this shade, and you'll see a little bit later on how specifically I would want to use this one. The other Shine by SD shade that I know I would definitely rebuy as soon as possible if it ever left my collection is the shade Ballistic. This one is a little bit more expensive, coming in currently at $13.30 US dollars, so $13.30. But it is worth the price. I knew for sure that within my 10, I wanted a green-brown duochrome because that is a type of shade that I really enjoy. And this is like the amped up version of that type of shade. This is actually a multi-chrome, so you can see that strong green on my finger right now. It does have a red base on it, so it's like a reddish brown, I guess. And then within the shift, it goes from this green that you see to a blue and then a really strong purple as well. So I'll go ahead and pull out the mirror at the end so that way hopefully you can see those shifts a little bit better. But if you've been here before, you will know this is a shade I love deeply as seen by the massive pan in it. And I absolutely would get this if I was starting off because it's so special and it's a great twist on a typical type of shade that you would see, but a little bit more of a fantastical version. Even though I'm only getting 2 shades to start from Shine by SD, it is a brand that I love, and these 2 shades are worth that international shipping for me personally. Now, depending on where you are in the world, shipping may be more or less if you are in Canada, but these 2 shades from this brand really are special, and they're 2 that I absolutely would want to have if I had to start over. I also do want to pull out a shameless plug though, that Riley did have a collaboration with Shine by SD that came out a couple months ago called the Earthborn collection, and she has some beautiful shades. I'll go ahead and link her video where she does some really in-depth swatching of all of the shades. I don't own any, or I guarantee one of them would have definitely made it in here. I am of course talking about Fata Morgana, which looks insanely beautiful, so definitely go check it out. I don't own any of those shades because I'm saving up for my upcoming wedding, but I love them and I definitely think that they are very special, even though they're not in my top 10. Speaking of Canadian brands, I knew that there was no way that Palace from Cleona was not making it into this video. This is a shade that when you're looking at it, you might be like, why is this one that you want to start off with if you have to rebuild? Let me tell you, it looks like a regular pink metallic, but then out of nowhere, bam, comes this amazing lime green, peach, and gold shift, and it is beautiful, you guys. I really like this one, especially if I'm starting off my collection, because it's a really special multi-chrome, incredibly shifty in real life, but it also has something kind of grounded about it, and I think you'll notice that that's a trend with the majority of the shades that I picked with starting off my collection, because I want to have things that I can wear every day, whether I'm going to the office, I'm out at night with my friends, or I'm just chilling at home. And so I feel like the shades that I've shown you so far especially are ones that are very versatile in that way and are not too much to wear out in public, you know, doing my errands, but also are special enough that I would love to have them and put them on my eyes every day. It was, though, pretty tough for me to keep Palace in my top 10 because if I'm thinking about this realistically, I would be placing an order from Cleona for 1 shadow, and this 1 shadow as of today retails for $15.50 US, and that's pretty expensive. Once you then factor in on top of that Canadian shipping, this is gonna be a pretty freaking expensive shadow for me to start my collection with. but that's how you know I really love it, because it's worth it to me. I have had this, I don't know, maybe like 6 months, and if you're familiar with the Clionadh shadows, you'll know that they come kind of domed on the top, and I have completely worn this down because I use this one a lot. Another reason that I was kind of struggling with the idea of putting Clionadh in my top 10 shadows is because Clionadh doesn't always have stock of their shadows. Like right now, Palace is out of stock, and so that is something I don't love and definitely makes me hesitate in putting it in my top 10 in my like recommendations for first indie shadows, because it can be kind of hard to get your hands on. But even with the shipping cost, the cost of the shadow, the fact that they don't really have any discount codes, and the fact that it's out of stock often, all of that aside, I still would pick this shadow because that is how much I enjoy it. And some of you may be surprised to not see the Clionadh shade Opulent in my top 10. I was teetering back and forth. It was in this palette quite a few times, but I ended up taking it out, and there is a reason, and it has to do with the hint I gave you earlier, so stay tuned. The next brand that I would purchase from is Terra Moons. Terra Moons, I feel like, is typically a little bit more accessible than Clionadh. They do pre-orders a lot for their more special shades, but they do have stock, and they do restock those pre-orders pretty regularly, so I think it's a lot easier to shop from. Plus, they do have some influencer discount codes. Along with that, even though Terra Moons is a little bit pricey, I find that their quality is so consistent that it's a really great place to start a collection, because you know exactly what you're gonna get every single time. And with that, I have been keeping this one swatched on my finger while I was ranting, and it is the shade Palladium. It is a beautiful, like, true metallic, dripping metal type of metallic rose gold shade. It is $7. When I bought it, it was $6, but they've done a lot of price hikes over at Terra Moons recently. And even still at $7, this is such a beautiful shadow. It's one of the cheapest on the Terra Moons website, which blows my freaking mind, because I feel like a bunch of other brands have shades like this, but they are much more expensive. And so for that alone, it's great. But this is also like the spiciest of true neutrals, which I did a video a little while ago that talked about some special neutral shades, and this was in it. And this is the type of shade I could wear this every day to work and be happy. Like, that is so sparkly. Like, do you see, you guys? And it has so much depth and dimension to it. It's great just all over the lids, all on its own. It's so easy, but it's also spectacular in that way that only indie single shadows can be. Another $7 shade from Terra Moons is Lunar Lavender, and I know that this is one I would want to start off with if I was rebuilding. That's funny for me to say too, because this is a newer shade, and considering how little of time I've had it in comparison to some of these others, it wormed its way into my heart immediately. This is such a beautiful shade. It's got that purple base, which, if you know, I'm a big purple fan. So it's got a purple base, which already is a win. And then on top, it's got that blue and pink and silver sparkle. And in the same way as Palladium, it is intensely sparkly. Even though it's a little bit more oomph, you know, in the color and the sparkle than something like Palladium would be, like in the office, I think that sheared out, it definitely still can be work appropriate, and I find it so complimentary. And if you're wondering why Opulent from Clionadh didn't make it into my top 10, this is why. This shade is cheaper and easier to access, and I discovered that when I start to top Reserve number 2 on top, I kind of get that golden purple that Opulent offers me. And so if I was starting from the ground up and slowly rebuilding my collection, I think that I would be pretty satisfied with this combination in the way that I am with Opulent. Not to say that this is a dupe at all for Opulent, but if you're starting off, this can be a good alternative, and I think it would be for me with a warm purple kind of look that has that golden sparkle and not just that super cool blue. But you'll have to let me know. Should one of these have lost their spot in honor of Opulent getting a place, or do you think that my workaround works? Let me know. Now, the last shade that I have from Terra Moons is the most expensive out of anything I have here. This is the shade Cosmic Collision. It's $17.95 on the Terra Moons website, and it honestly doesn't use discount codes most of the time. Like, this is an excluded shade, but even with all of that, I still think that I would be willing to pick this up and have it be one of the first shadows in my collection. And I feel like the reason why is pretty self-explanatory once I get it swatched on my arm. It's got, again, a bright purple base, much less dusty than Lunar Lavender. And then the shifts on this one are very clear right from the get-go. We've got this gold, and then it shifts to more of a green and then a teal, and it is, again, so sparkly. And longtime watchers of my channel may be surprised to see Cosmic Collision here rather than Shattered Stars, which is a shade that I love so much. But the reason that I ended up picking Cosmic Collision is that I think that Cosmic Collision in the long term is going to be more versatile for me than Shattered Stars would be. And I say that because I think if I used like a mauve-y kind of purple, kind of like this dusty purple type of base matte color, and then I put Cosmic Collision over the top and more of a light wash, I think that I would get something kind of similar to Shattered Stars, and it saved me a spot in my top 10 because I can always get this one to look super extreme, but no matter what, Shattered Stars is going to look a little bit more muted. So I figured it's easier to take something that is extreme and mute it down than it is to try to make something that's naturally muted more extreme. So this definitely would be like my going out to the bars and having a night out with some of my friends out of everything that I've shown you and everything that I will be showing you. Now we're getting into Looksie, and if you don't know, I am a big Looksie stan. I am balling on a budget out here, and so if I was starting my collection over again, I know I would turn to Looksie for some inexpensive but beautiful shades, the same way I did when I was starting off my indie collection this first time around. So I decided to stick with just 4 from Looksie, and the ones that I picked were number 1, Angel Wings, which if you've seen any of my Looksie videos, will not surprise you. This is my number 1 shade consistently from the brand. I think it is a beautiful, special neutral shade, and I wanted to make sure that I wasn't getting anything that's too similar to each other for my first 10 shadows that I'm getting. And this one I feel like is pretty different from Palladium. It's a lot warmer of a rosy kind of color in the base, whereas this is more of like a rose gold. And this one has a green and gold and silver and blue sparkle in it, whereas this one keeps that consistent rose gold color. And so for all of those reasons, I would totally be willing to have both in my first 10 shadows. This one is my go-to every single day. I talked about wearing this as a wash all over the eyes for work. This one, I'd probably do that with even more. I love this shadow. I think that for my skin tone and undertone and eye color, it is so complimentary. And considering that all of these are $3 and that Looksie shipping isn't too bad, it's definitely one that I would be happy to purchase right away as soon as I started buying shadows. Next is the shade Margarita. And if you know me, you'll know some of my favorite types of shades to wear are purples and yellows. I love a good yellow. It is just the epitome of joy, and it makes me so happy. So I know I'd want one in my collection right from the get-go, and I think that this is a great yellow. It is so punchy and like true yellow, not gold, and there is a little bit of shift happening in this one. So you can see from straight on, it's kind of got a greenish gold sparkle in it, but then in different lighting, it can get a hint of an orange sparkle in it as well. And in that way, I find it very similar to Cleona Embellishment, although it's a lot lighter in the base. So again, if I pulled out mattes, assuming that I still have some matte shadows, this could be used in a lot of different ways. And I think that because of that, it's definitely one I would want to start off with. Plus, I mean, yellow. That's all I feel like I need to say. Next up is the shade Hybrid, and I actually tend to prefer the shade Snickerdoodle from Looksie, which is another blue-brown duochrome, but that one doesn't seem like it's always available, which is one reason I didn't put it in this video. And the other is that similar to Cosmic Collision, Hybrid is the more punchy version, and I feel like it's easier to dull things down than it is to build things up to a level that they just can't get to. So Hybrid is a traditional like blue-brown duochrome. It's a little bit more reddish brown in that base, and you can see it's got that blue sparkle on top, and it does shift pink in the sparkle as well. So you can see I've got it kind of sheared on my arm right now, and I think that when it's worn this way, it is very everyday. I decided to go with Hybrid, which is an exact dupe, in my opinion, to the shade Terra Borealis from Terra Moons, because again, if I'm starting my collection from the ground up, I'm trying to be as affordable and efficient as possible. So I figured the $3 shade is definitely what I would pick between the two if I was starting and I didn't have either. But I will say that I do think that this one takes a little bit more finagling than Terra Borealis does. It kind of needs built up a little bit more, and I think that I would be okay with that if I was starting off and I'm looking for best bang for my buck. I know myself well enough to know I'd be very happy with this and saving the extra couple of dollars. And then last but not least, we've got another one with a mega pan going on. This is the shade Ube, and it is one of the first indie shadows that I got, and I think that part of the reason I love it so much is because it holds that special place in my heart, but it also, again, is very versatile if you're starting off a collection. So this one has a very light purple base. You can see it really is an iridescent shade once you get it swatched out, and I thought that it would be a great second option as an iridescent compared to this one, because this one definitely leans more cool. You can see it's got that greenish teal sparkle in it compared to the gold sparkle that is in Reserve number 2. And so I thought that no matter what type of look I was doing, one of these two could complement my look in the inner corner very well. But just like Reserve number 2, this is a shade that I also love to wear all over the eyes on its own. And I think that even though it's kind of got some funky colors in it, because it's so light and kind of like a wash, it's really easy to wear out, and I never feel like it's too much. So you can see it's got that very light purple base with that tealy green sparkle on top. And then depending on the light, it does shift to a pink sparkle as well. And now that I've got all of my top 10 swatched out, let me go ahead and pull out the mirror, and hopefully we can catch some of those shifts I've been describing. I went ahead and pulled out the big mirror to hopefully show those shifts a little bit easier. I think that in Ballistic, you can definitely see that blue and purple in the shift. That's that second shade away from my wrist. And the shade Palace from Cleona underneath, you can definitely see that vibrant green that it shifts to. I feel like you're maybe missing some of those middle colors that it shifts to, like that peach and gold, but at least you can see the most extreme of the shifts. Moving on, you can see a little bit of pink, maybe in Lunar Lavender, But the one underneath, Cosmic Collision, you can really see that green and teal that I was talking about, along with the gold and purple. So many shifts happening in that one. It is so beautiful. Then below that, I think you can maybe see a little bit of orange sparkle in Margarita, and then you can see the pink for sure in the shade Hybrid, and I feel like you can see the pink in the shade Ube as well. Hopefully you all are able to see those shifts as well as I am in person looking at the mirror. And that's it. Those are the 10 shades that I would purchase if I had to start my collection from the bottom up. And they're shades that I recommend if you find that we have similar styles in our indie eyeshadow taste. I feel like longtime viewers of my channel may be surprised with some of the choices that I made, but even though these aren't necessarily my favorite shadows that I own, I wouldn't say that these are my top 10 overall. But I think that because of the versatility within these shadows, these are the 10 that I would want to start with and still get that combination of really special shades, but also grounded shades that I can wear out and about, and shades that I can kind of twist into being different things than what they may appear as just here swatched on my arm. And we've got all of my favorite colors in here. We've got some neutrals, we've got some purples, we've got some blue brown and green brown duochromes, we've got a beautiful yellow, and all of that together makes my heart so happy. Before I wrap up the video, I again wanted to say thank you so much to Riley for being willing to collaborate with me. I reached out, and I'm not gonna lie, I was a little intimidated doing it, but my interactions with her have been that she is so gracious and kind and humble, and I have really enjoyed the opportunity to get to know Riley and learn more about her as a person outside of what she does on Instagram and YouTube. And she's a real treat. Like I said before, if you haven't subscribed to her YouTube channel already, be sure to subscribe. It's linked in my bio. If you've gotten to this point in the video and you haven't subscribed to her yet, what are you doing? Oh my gosh, she's getting so close to 1,000, and I would love to help get her there. So be sure to subscribe to Riley. Thank you so much for watching this video. Let me know, what are your 10 shadows that you would start with if you had to build your collection? And let me know, between Riley's shadow picks and mine, what out of our 20 shadows would you pick as your top 10? And until I see you next time, I hope that you stay safe, stay healthy, stay happy. Bye!